Would Russia cut its losses and pull out of this war in Ukraine? There is precedent for that. Russia's invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 shares a number of similarities with its attack now on Ukraine, not just in how the war in Ukraine began or the support role played by the United States, but also because of how many Russian soldiers have died so far. Joining me now here in Washington, CNN national security analyst Peter Bergen. Peter, you've studied both of these conflicts extensively. You wrote an op-ed about this on CNN.com. And there it is right there, the number that puts Vladimir Putin at risk. Let's talk about the start of the war, the start of the Russian invasion in Afghanistan, some of the similarities. What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, I think the big similarity, for Vladimir Putin, the big similarity is that 15,000 Russian troops may have died, according to estimates from NATO officials to CNN. Well, the official numbers during the 1980 war against the Soviets is 15,000 Russian soldiers dead. So in 9 years of war during the 80s, 15,000 Russian soldiers died. In 1 month of war in Ukraine, 15,000 Russian soldiers have died. Now, Vladimir Putin understood that the Berlin Wall fell when the Soviets pulled out of Afghanistan. He knows it's not an accident. He was a young KGB officer in East Germany at the time. It was a signal event in his life. So he must be keenly aware that, you know, things can change, not in his favor, if enough body bags start going home. And going further back in Russian history, you know, the Romanovs, basically, they lost World War I. They, you know, first of all abdicated and then were executed. So Putin is well aware of this Russian history, that if you fail in wars, that it could be a big problem for you yourself.
Right. They don't typically stick around when they've suffered a loss like they're experiencing right now. And the Ukrainians are fighting back, not exactly the way the Afghans did during the war in Afghanistan, but they are fighting back in less, I guess, you know, catastrophic terms. They're using Molotov cocktails. They've obviously had many demonstrations and so on. But from their perspective, they are making it very clear they're not going to be suppressed by Putin. They are going to mount this resistance. And in many ways, it does remind you of how things went in Afghanistan.
Yeah, and the big difference, Jim, is that the Ukrainians are much better armed than the Afghans. The Afghans didn't have Stinger anti-aircraft missiles till 1986, i.e. 7 years into the war. Yeah. Here, the Ukrainians have them already, and they have the Javelin, they have very effective British anti-tank weapons, and, you know, the results speak for themselves. So, you know, the Russian, you know, kind of failure in Ukraine is happening rather dramatically, if indeed they fail. I mean, it's an open question, but they're clearly not winning and they may be losing. In Afghanistan, until '86, the Afghans put up a big fight, but they didn't have the right weapons. The Ukrainians do have the right weapons, and also if they get their hands on S-300 missiles, these are very effective anti-aircraft weapons that they know how to use. There's obviously pressure to get those weapons into the theater, and that will be even more of a game changer, because right now they can bring down ballistic missiles, and they can bring down high altitude aircraft with these S-300s, which the Stingers cannot.
Right. And I guess you're right, there's a chance that Putin could feel so cornered in Ukraine that he could use weapons of mass destruction, even use his nuclear arsenal. God forbid that happens. But what does the Afghan experience tell us about whether or not Putin would go down that road in Ukraine?
Well, certainly the Afghan experience showed, I mean, the Soviets were, you know, they killed 1 million Afghans. I mean, that's the minimal number, and as many as 2 million. They made 1/3 of the population homeless. So, you know, these kinds of Russian tactics, we saw it in Grozny, we saw it in Aleppo and Syria. Right. I mean, scorched earth tactics are not new.
That's right. And I want to ask you about the Taliban in Afghanistan and what's happening now. The Taliban postponing the return to school for girls above the 6th grade. The U.S. representative for Afghanistan says that caught the U.S. by surprise. Perhaps that should not have come as a surprise, but help our viewers understand what's happening there right now, because we haven't touched base with you on this in some time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I find it deeply unsurprising.
Yeah.
7 months after they took power, you know, they are preventing girls who are above the age of 13 to go to school. Put that in the unsurprising file, not in the I'm deeply surprised file. And, you know, that's been part of their project from the beginning, is to exclude women from the workplace and exclude girls above a certain age from education. And the education ministry in Afghanistan said, you know, we're going to design a new uniform, and that's the problem. Well, I mean, come on. doesn't
Right.
take you 7 months to design a new uniform. So it's an excuse. Unfortunately, I don't think it's surprising, and it's of a piece with kind of their project right now, which is they didn't reform any. It's just window dressing when they've sort of said that we're different, and this clearly shows that they haven't changed.
Yeah, the Taliban, we didn't expect a whole lot of changes out of the Taliban, and they're not surprising us in the least. All right, Peter Bergen, thank you very much. Good to see you.
퇴직연금 1등